Hey crew, Mark Hadmaker here. I'm going to give you a yakety yak here. It's fight related, but it's not a demo. This is probably best served just doing audio on it only, but if you can bear with me on a yakety yak for a few moments, here you go. Let's talk about one of the questions you usually have the fighters of the old days, be it the boxers or wrestlers or combination fighters or rough and tumblers. Were they tougher in the old days? Yeah, I'm going to say yeah. One, that's my bias, but two, if you stick with me on this, we've got a series of articles coming out in our free newsletter and in our blog at Digital Stability. Go to our website www.extremeselfprotection.com to get all that stuff. One of them we've been talking about where we're saying they're tougher. I want to make sure it's not opinion related. We want to make sure it's perhaps numerical, empirically related. Let's talk about some work rate. Let's start out with a date. We're going to go with January 15th, 1925. That's the date that lightweight champion Benny Leonard, he announces his retirement from boxing. Now, at that date, Leonard had already been boxing for 14 years. Sorry about that, pulling up on you there. He'd been champion for 8 years of that, and he'd engaged in almost 181 professional fights. Okay, 181. 181 fights in 14 years. It averages to one professional fight per month. Okay, now the actual calendar, when you look at the record, shows that sometimes, that's around the correct mark. Sometimes there's a little tick, maybe sometimes more than one, a little longer than a month, and sometimes twice in the same month. And again, 181 fights. This is 14 years. I want you to stop for a moment and think about what I just said there. That work rate that's going on. We're not talking one sparring session per month. We are talking about one bona fide professional fight against people in an era that was heavily packed with talent, okay? These are not just club fighters and journeymen. He's not doing a bum of the month thing. This is not multiple boxing organizations to spread the titles around and water down the talent pool, so where you got kind of like so-and-so is ranked third in this organization, but only 11th in this one. We're talking about this is all one organization. You see whatever is all these heavy hitters, this sluggers row is lined up. These are the real deal people he's fighting. So there's none of this statistical tweaking noise. Each weight class had a single apex, a single belt, a single title to shoot for, okay? Now, every fighter had their eyes on the top, a definable top. They all knew where they stood. It's a single organization. They stood in a jungle of hungry fighters there, my friends, competing for the same piece of pie. Now, let's not think that Benny Leonard was unexceptional. The man was an exceptional fighter, and he was very, very slick fighter. We're just using Mr. Leonard and as an example here. This is a jumping off point. Matter of fact, we're just using the retirement date only there. Again, he retired here's that date again, January 15th. 1925. Stay with me. Now, within days of this retirement, the New York State Athletic Commission announces a tournament to fill in this lightweight vacancy, all right? Invitations are sent to the top 20 contenders in the field. You hear me? The top 20 contenders in the field. 20. That's a hell of a field, right? Now, hold on. Commission didn't stop there. This was a world title, so they thought they'd invite some participants from around the world. So they sent invites to England, Canada, Canadian champions, Mexican champions, Cuban champions, Chile. So our field rapidly expands from the starting 20, the top 20 cream of the crop here in the U.S., and it just winds up to be more than 50 competitors, all right? 50 competitors take part to determine this new champion. Again, I'm going to give you that date, January 15th, 1925. Now, by February, promoters had already lined up the first fight. So we got the January the 15th, February, we're already getting these guys going, this 50-plus field going on. And this is going to be a round robin style of elimination series, okay? So some of these guys are going to be fighting more than once, and they're not just fighting bums, they're fighting one another to get to this. Now, this is a pause for consideration. Consider Mr. Leonard's work record. Again, that 181, compare that to any champion to date, any champion being in boxing or MMA or whatever. Conjure the last time a present-day champion retired. Think about it. Now, conjure how long it took to get the choosing of the next champ off the ground. Right? Think about that, how long that takes. Now, let alone imagining using something so democratic as an actual leveling of the playing field with the top 20 best in the field, let alone the invitation of additions from around the world, all right? Now, politics and marketing so delay and pervert the current state of affairs today that championship vacancies can go on far longer, and the tournament to choose the next champion is also limited to a few behind-the-door shufflings if this are not quite top tier, and let alone inviting 20 or 50 for a field. Come on, when has that happened in your lifetime, all right? Now let's get back to Mr. Leonard. Was his work rate an exaggeration? 181 fights. We're talking about maybe around one fight a month. Were most fighters working at these rates similar to today, or is it he just aberration? All right, if he was just an aberration, there's no point in comparing who's tougher, because you're going to get to pull out this highlight, and there you go. Well, let's compare today's current heavyweight champions, all right? The current champion of the WBA, WBO, and WBC organization is Alexander Usyk. He has a total of 23 professional fights, all right? That's 23 fights, 23. The current IBF heavyweight champion is Daniel Dubois. Mr. Dubois has 24 professional fights, 23 and 24. Again, back to Mr. Leonard. With his work rate an aberration? 181 fights, keep in mind there. In the lightweight tourney of 1925, these are just a few among the competitors. We got George K.O. Cheney with 191 professional fights, Sammy Mendel at 77, Jimmy Goodrich at 122, Eddie Kid Wagner 63, Tommy O'Brien 75, Joe Benjamin 101, Benny Valgar 126, Jack Bernstein 80, Ace Hudkins 40. I guess he's just a lazy guy there, huh? Solly Seaman 44 fights. I repeat, our current world champions stand at 23 and 24 fights, respectively. Okay, now back to the tournament. It was not without problems. Of course, any field that large in a game is competitive actual fighting is going to be bound to be a few problems, right? You got a few unpopular decisions, 2 as a matter of fact. A few winners who had to pull out due to injury. Imagine that. You're fighting a whole lot, the cream of the crop. It's going to happen. And 2 contenders who declined to enter. Sid Terrace, very talented fighter, and Johnny Dundee, also very talented fighter. They weren't in it. To be fair, they chose not to go for that piece of the pie, so that's on them. Now, problems aside, you can imagine, can you think of a more level way to determine who gets the crown, right? Anyway, to stay in our theme of work rate, on July 13th, 1925, at Madison Square Garden in Buffalo, Jimmy Goodrich stopped Stanislaus Loaiza of Chile, and the second to become crowned the new lightweight champion. Now, let's listen to that date one more time, all right? The conclusion of the tournament, July 13th, 1925. Benny Leonard retired on January 15th, 1925. 50-plus fighters are invited to brawl. 6 months later, we have a new champ. This is evidence of work rate, because, and recall, this was a round robin. Each fighter who won in advance to fight again in hopes of keeping that advance alive. By the time we get to July 13th, our final top 2 competitors have fought a combined 11 times. All right, so these guys kept fighting. So they're fighting the top 50 in the world, and then they got to fight more of the top 50 in the world. They just keep hitting the best and the best and the best and the best. They cut those last 2 guys. Again, they fought a total of 11 times to get there. Now, Mr. Leonard's work rate was not an anomaly. There was a time when fighters fought, and they fought a lot. And they fought because they were tough with the capital T. Many pros today, the pros today, work rate's just one way to determine toughness. But I think it's safe to say that, particularly in this one particular realm, and I didn't just cherry pick any of the lightweight division and all this, it just was very useful to see it from that context, from the retirement date to choosing a new individual during the tournament. Work rate tells a lot. There's other aspects. We're going to continue on this series of Were They Tough in the Old Days. We're going to give you all the evidence we can to make sure it's the case with boxers, wrestlers, combinations, fighters, and rough and tumbles and stuff. Anyway, if you enjoy this and you like what we're doing here and you actually want to more than just hear me yak about it and actually get to training yourself with it, please see our material over www.extremeselfprotection.com. Actually, even check out our subscription service where we actually get you training, give you monthly templates, and get you moving all the time. That's called the Black Box Project. Or just you can sample some of other things and get a book and videos out the wahoo. So take a look there. Thanks for putting your ears on. If you stay this long, I really appreciate you. Here comes my thumb.